All right, happy Wednesday, world. This is the free webinar that I'm leading called The Keys to Sharing Your Unique Story with the World. And I figured I might as well start out by telling a little story. What's up, Summit? Long time no see, homie. Um, so it's interesting. Just about 10 years ago was the first time I was ever on YouTube. I just looked up and I just looked it up, and this video was published on December 5th, 2009. And yeah, so the story is that I read this book in high school called Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it's a very amazing book, and it really changed my life and opened my eyes to a lot of different ways of seeing the world and kind of like all the cultural conditioning that so many of us have. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. So I read this book called Ishmael, and it just like totally opened my eyes, and I started to see that I had basically been brainwashed by mainstream society. And so at that point, I was watching probably like 6 hours of TV every day. And so I decided to start getting my information from YouTube rather than, yeah, Summit, it's an awesome book. So I started getting my information from YouTube rather than the TV, and it turned out I actually learned about Ishmael through YouTube. I was watching a lot of documentaries, and I actually found like this group of people. They called themselves IshTube, and they were like a community of people that had all read this book Ishmael, and they were sharing their perspectives on the world that were influenced by this book. And so I was like, oh my God, I have to read this book. So I finally read it, and it just totally changed my life. And I started like interacting with all these people just on YouTube. I hadn't met any of them, but they were really inspiring to me. And so at one point I was considering making my own YouTube video, but I was like too scared. I was like, no, I don't want to put myself out there. That's not really my thing. But eventually this guy, Zach, who made music inspired by Ishmael, the book, he said like, okay, we're asking everyone who's read this book to like send in a little clip of yourself that we can compile into like this big music video. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll make like a 2-second clip. I can handle that amount of like public exposure. So I made this like 2-minute video of me like holding the book and like dancing or something, and they included it in the video. And then when it got there, I was like, oh my God, like I'm on YouTube. This is crazy. And like I probably watched the video like 20 times just to like confirm that this was real. And it kind of like dissolved the fear a little bit. I was like, all right, I can like make YouTube videos. This isn't that big of a deal. So that was around, it was December of 2009 that I started my YouTube channel. And I started it with my friend Sam, and who had also read Ishmael, and we would talk about Ishmael all the time and geek out. So we started our YouTube channel in 2009, and our first video was like kind of a compilation music video. Neither of us were actually in it. But in the beginning of 2010 was when I started making my own YouTube videos. I was a freshman in college, and I would just film them in my dorm room, and I would just talk about what I was inspired about. And that led me on quite a magical mystery tour. I've now made like over 600 YouTube videos, and it's brought so much magic into my life. And so I want to share in this webinar like some of the best things that I've learned, primarily through sharing through YouTube and through Facebook. Those have been like my main two platforms besides like real life events. Facebook and YouTube have been my main two things. Like I only got a smartphone like 2 weeks ago or a month ago, so I've only been on Instagram like a month, so I don't know that much about Instagram, but I'm learning it. But in this webinar, I'm going to share basically like 8 primary keys to utilizing Facebook and YouTube to spread your message to the world. And I'm going to talk about why that's important and just some of the the different like algorithms and little tips and tricks that have helped me a lot. So thank you all for joining. If you want to like say where you're tuning in from in the world or something like that, I also thought it might be cool as a little fun exercise to share like 1 or 2 words that kind of summarize 2019 for you. Like for me, groundedness has been a huge theme. If you want to just post in the comments, like even if you're watching this in the future, like a theme that has been present for you through 2019. You know, those of you who know me probably notice I've gained some extra meat on my bones in the last year. That feels really good to be more grounded and just able to bench press my friends and do acro yoga and stuff. So anyways, groundedness is a big theme for me in 2019. So yeah, I'll just share that it's really helpful to have like a notebook if you really want to get the most out of what I'm going to be sharing. Also, I'm big on hydration, so if you want to get a little water or tea or something, that's probably good. But yeah, I write down pretty much everything that I learn. You know, I use a notebook all the time. I've got like a zillion notebooks from the last 10 years because I believe that, you know, our brains can only process so much information at once. And if you have like an external hard drive through your brain, through a notebook, that's super helpful. Trixie says she's in West Texas. 2019 has been blurry. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Hopefully 2020 could bring more clarity. Pun intended. Hello, Naga. Welcome. So yeah, I recommend getting a notebook if you really want to get the most out of what I'm going to share, because these tips are super helpful and they've really transformed my life, and I know they've helped a lot of other people. So as I was just saying, I started making YouTube videos at the beginning of really 2010. And it's been truly amazing, the journey that I've been on since then. In 2010, I rode my bike across America with a group. And so when I was riding, I was posting things on Facebook and YouTube saying, hey, we're starting to bike across Ohio, X, Y, and Z. Do I know anyone in Ohio? And like several times during the trip, people that I only knew through the internet contacted me and were like, hey, we've got a place in Nebraska. You can stay with us in Nebraska. And, you know, it turned out one of the main guys who started the channel that I was talking about Ishmael, he invited us to stay with him in Nebraska. And so we did, and it was super awesome. We got to see his permaculture garden, meet his family, and we stayed with him for like a few days. Yeah, there will definitely be, to everyone, a question and answer at the end. I'm just going to share for probably about 30 minutes these main downloads, and then I'd be happy to share any questions or answers. So anyways, throughout this whole bike trip, we kept connecting with people because we put ourselves out there on the internet. And so if I wouldn't have publicized my thing, if I would have believed like, oh, my story's not that important, I shouldn't put it out there, no one's going to care, then I never would have connected with all these amazing people. And like literally probably half of my Facebook friends I've never met in actual person, but we've exchanged inspiration and connected, and it's been super amazing. So that leads me to key number 1 to sharing your unique story for the world. You've got to put yourself out there. That's like the summary. You've got to put yourself out there if you want to get your message to the world. You can't just expect people to find you, and you can't just expect people to automatically read your mind. Like, you really got to consistently make yourself visible. So what are some of the key ways to do that? Well, one key is having your Facebook photo be an actual picture of you that people can see, so that like a random person coming across the internet, if they want to learn about whatever your message is, they'll see your picture and be like, okay, this is a real person, not a robot. They can click on your profile and they'll know that you're at least presenting yourself to the world and not like hiding behind like a donkey picture or something. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's like, if you're gonna be wanting to grow your message, your business, your project, whatever, you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And so, ideally having like a decent quality photo so that, people can see that you're, broadcasting yourself to the world is helpful. And I mentioned that I just joined Instagram recently, and I find that on Instagram, people are totally cool with like following random people that they don't know. That's like a totally normal thing. But on Facebook, people seem to be much more hesitant generally to friend request someone that they don't know. And I think that's something that we have to question and, in my opinion, shift, because, ever since like 2010, I've just been friend requesting random people that I think are interesting. And I've connected with literally thousands of awesome people that way. I know that some people are kind of shy maybe, or don't necessarily want to be that vulnerable. But I think that's something that we've really got to realize, is that we're all one human family and we shouldn't be so scared of each other. And like, what's the worst that could happen? Someone's not going to accept your friend request, So I think that if you're on Facebook and you want to grow your project, your business, you've got to start searching out people that are interesting, people that are putting their thoughts and videos and, pictures into the world that have a similar message, and then friend request them, or at very least follow them so that you can like be in their information, comment. That's another huge way to connect with people. Start commenting on their things, share your perspective, start bouncing ideas. Because if you just stay in your own little tiny bubble, your stuff's never going to get out to the world. But if you start connecting with people all over the world, then, it will start this kind of global web activation that is really magical. So like, on this same note of putting yourself out there, a lot of people care about their privacy, which I respect, but if you really want your thing to grow, you've got to kind of realize that you have to sacrifice some of your privacy in a way. Like, you can't just be hiding in your shell all the time if you really want to change the world. Like, what if Martin Luther King had like a privacy issue and he was like, well, I don't really want people photographing me all the time and, talking about me in the news, so I'm not really going to do my thing. He would have never created all the change that he did. But because he was willing to sacrifice some of his privacy for this greater purpose, he was able to change the world. And that's what I really think we're being called to do in these times, is to really step up and become like, a spokesperson for Mother Earth, a spokesperson for all these people who don't have a platform to change things in the world. Like, that was one of the big things that got me started into activism back in like 2008 or 2009, was I learned about the genocide in Darfur. And I was like, how is this not making the news? Like, we're busy worrying about like Michael Jackson and all this bullshit when people are being murdered by the hundreds of thousands in Africa, and it just got me so passionate. And that's what I think it really takes to like break out of your shell and be like, I don't give a fuck if I'm going to not be a private person anymore. Like, I need to speak up about these issues that fucking matter. And that's what it really took for me to like break out of my shell, was like, I need to do everything in my power to be a spokesperson for whatever issues I care about. We all have different issues, but I think it's important that we all find that issue or those issues and use that as like a catalyst to be like, okay, I'm now going to be a public spokesperson for this for this thing, you know. And like, all right, so that leads me to thanks for listening, thanks for tuning in. That leads me to point number 2, which is that to recognize like we're entering into 2020, which is like this huge blank slate, like literally just the year of 2020 obviously is a whole new blank slate. It's the beginning of a whole new decade, but it's also a whole new decade. Like it's 10 years, a whole blank slate. Like, can you imagine all that you did in the last 10 years and all that you've learned and grown, and now the perspective and wisdom that you have now entering this whole new 10 years. And so I really invite you to just kind of sit with all of that potential and to realize like this is literally one of the most pivotal, important times in all of human history. Like it's pretty insane. And you know, cynics may be like, well, everyone's always said that since the Roman era and everything. Everyone always thinks they're the most important, which may be true. But here's 3 reasons why it's different than the past. 1, we are empowered with way more tools than anyone has had throughout human history. Like the average Joe at their computer, Joe or Jolie, whatever, at their computer has more access to tools to transform the whole human consciousness than ever before in human history. You know, people can make a video in one night and then it goes viral and reaches 10 million people the next day. Like that is an immense amount of power that we all have literally at our fingertips. So that's reason number 1 why everything's different now. Number 2, which ties in with that, is that we have way more knowledge and solutions available at our fingertips. Like in the past, we didn't have this global conversation happening 24/7 comparing, like if a disease is cured in like Western Malaysia, they have the solution that can like spread around the world to every other hospital in the world so they can implement that solution. And if someone figures out how to like clean up oil with mushrooms in Texas, then like that can spread around the world in, you know, a year to solve all the other problems. So we have like so many more solutions at our fingertips than ever before. But number 3, why the situation is so different is like never before has the web of life been so threatened by so many different factors. You know, like we could literally blow ourselves up with nuclear bombs if we did it wrong. You know, like there's enough nuclear bombs to freaking destroy this planet, which is crazy. You know, there's a billion different ecological crises happening because our civilization is using more resources than this planet can produce. Like it's just a fact. Like if everyone in the world, if 7 billion people used as much resources as Americans, as probably everyone watching this right now does, we would require five planets worth of resources to using every single drop of resources just for us. So that needs to change because we're literally just like shooting ourselves in the foot. And that's why the bees are going extinct. And that's why we've deforested 90% of the old growth forests, and like the oceans are filled with plastic because we're on this like insane consumerist addiction where we think we just need more and more. It's like where we say that we need progress, but like where are we progressing towards? Like, are we really gonna try and colonize outer space? Like, it just seems crazy to me that we're destroying this planet for the sake of progress when life is really pretty simple and we don't need to destroy nearly as much. Anyways, those are the 3 reasons why things are different right now and why this next 10 years is so pivotal. And I think we all need to like step up and be spokespeople for the issues that we care about most. And that could be in the form of your business, your project, your nonprofit, your artwork. Like all of these things are important. So that is the main point number 2. So far, for those of you turning in, we covered you got to put yourself out there. You got to be visible. Number 2, this is like a pivotal time that we're living in. So let's just get straight into, I think the kind of the nitty gritty of like sharing content with the world. So for those of you tuning in, I highly recommend getting a notebook if you want to get the most out of this, to jot down these insights, because I try to like distill everything to like the golden nuggets. So anyways, if you want to start kind of sharing more content with the world, specifically on Facebook and YouTube, you want to start being what's called a content creator. So you're not just like sharing memes, you're not just like posting YouTube links, you're literally creating your own content. And this is incredibly simple, but I'm going to kind of break down some of the key points to it. So there's a lot of different kind of ways to create content. And I've been kind of navigating a lot of them over the past 10 years, but Facebook and video are the main 2 that I like. I'm just going to find this little thing here. But there's a few, there's a few key reasons why I think it's important to share your unique story, not just resharing other people's. We all have a different perspective, and we all have unique experiences on this planet. And I think the key is to realize that no one's more special than everyone else, but that doesn't mean that each of us aren't freaking awesome and special. And we each have like a purpose here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on this planet if we didn't have a reason for being here. So here's 5 specific reasons for sharing your content with the world. The first one is to validate other people. By you sharing your struggle with mental health or food addiction or whatever your issues are, you're validating somebody else's story, and they'll think like, oh, maybe I'm not the only one. Maybe I'm not crazy. And like, I've done this countless times. I've shared things that are uncomfortable for me. I've shared vulnerable things. And so many people have reached out to me like, thank you for sharing this. I really appreciate it. I really needed to hear that right now. So it's important that we all share our unique experiences because it validates other people. Number 2 is that it inspires other people. It inspires people when you say like, oh, I went out and donated all of my leftover food to this homeless shelter, and all these homeless people were so thankful, and they gave me hugs, and they were just wanted to be my best friend because I gave them. So like, if you share your story with the world, it will definitely inspire other people. And like, the magic that I think you'll eventually realize the more you share your story with the world is like, it may seem so obvious to you, the things that you think and the things that you do, but it will naturally be amazing to somebody else, somewhere else in the world. Like, that's just how this reality works. So I'm going to show you guys my shirt. So my shirt says, dun, 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 you are the medicine. This is from an amazing artist called Cornflower, who does loop pedal music. He's a phenomenal musician. His tour is called You Are the Medicine. And I really believe that the nature of this reality is that we all have different medicine to share with each other. If you could imagine walking through a forest, every plant has a different property and medicine that it shares with other plants and other things to help them all form this ecosystem. And that's literally how our human family is, but we've like forgotten it. We all have medicine for each other. And you might be in this false story that your medicine isn't important or your medicine isn't good, but that's literally bullshit. Like, I promise you, your medicine is valuable to someone on this planet, and you have to put yourself out there for them to find it. If you just stay in your house all day and don't put your medicine out there, no one's gonna freaking find you. So anyways, validation, inspiration are two reasons to put your stuff out there. Another one is humor. I'm huge on humor, and like I think that just putting your funny little jokes and perspective into the world, even if it makes one person laugh, then like you did your job. And I'll put a caveat with that. Like I'm really big on like PG-13 humor. I definitely don't want to be spreading humor that like targets a type of people or really hurts people's feelings or whatever. But if it's PG-13 clean humor, please put it out there. So Shanti says, I like that we all have different medicine. And she says, it brings us the most joy to share our medicine, perhaps. And I agree with that. I think that's actually like a clue to what your medicine is. Like what brings you joy, what brings you fulfillment, but also it's important to figure out like what the world is seeking. Maybe people aren't really vibing with something you're putting out there, but then you put something else out there and like people really vibe with that. Then that's kind of a feedback to what you like to do. But even if there is something that you really like that no one else likes, I still think it's important to do it a little bit. So putting your form of humor out there. And so like one way to do this is, rather than just like sharing a meme, what I do is I will find a meme online and then copy and paste it to my desktop, or I'll just drag it to my desktop and then re-upload it and put like some of my commentary on it, like my spin, my perspective on it, because then it becomes kind of like a co-created piece of content. So that's really helpful. And with that said, I will mention that most of this content creation, in my opinion, is much easier if you have a laptop or a computer, a desktop. I've recently gotten a smartphone, and to be honest, it seems much more difficult to be doing long posts and complex things when you don't have a desktop. So that might be something to explore if you don't have that and you're really wanting to put yourself out there more. So anyways, the fourth reason to put yourself out there is so that you can share information so that other people can learn new things and learn about whatever your passion is. Like, I'm really passionate about sacred geometry. So one of these days I'm going to make a whole post that just shares like some of my favorite things related to sacred geometry, like how the whole universe is reflecting these similar patterns, and they're found all throughout nature and in the parts of our body, like the Fibonacci sequence. Like, a lot of people just have no idea what sacred geometry is, and I'm so passionate about it. So I'm going to make a post and I'm going to share it to the world all about sacred geometry. And whatever your passion is, I think if you start kind of this is another good thing to write down. They call it like scheduling posts. So you just so you can like have a notebook and write down different topics that you want to talk about in the next month or 2 months. And then you could kind of schedule like, okay, I'll post this one on this week, this one on the next week, and this one the next week. And I'll start kind of drafting them in my mind. So that's the fourth reason to share your stuff with the world, because you can teach people new things, or at least start conversations about new things. You don't have to put yourself as like this all-knowing authority, but just be like, yo, I'm super interested in this topic. Let's talk about it. So the fifth reason to put yourself out there is to, and tell your unique perspective on things, is so that you can share, be a curator for beautiful art, beautiful music, dances, all these different things be like a person shining a light on maybe this artist who doesn't have much of a following. You can like connect your whole community online with this new person to help them get some more exposure and show people that this musician is awesome, you know? That's one of my huge passions. It's like, you know, I wrote these 2 books that I love and share all this helpful information, but like one of my favorite things in both books is that I just list like my favorite musicians and favorite songs, and I know that many people have really appreciated that. So those are 5 specific reasons why I think it's important to create your own content and you know, put your own spin on it, so that you're not just sharing it, but you're sharing like how you engaged with this thing that benefited you. All right, let's keep this cruising. So I'm just going to list a few things related to speaking. So, you know, I've been doing public speaking since basically like 2008, when I started in high school speaking up about the Darfur genocide, and I would present in different classrooms, and I would prepare a speech, and I would share it. And it was scary for me. I did feel nervous, but I was willing to put myself out there because the mission was so important. And that's what I feel like everyone needs to find. You need to find something that is more important than your little story that you're scared of public speaking. You know, like that's really what it takes. Like, and if you're not pissed off about a certain issue, or you don't think it's that important, then send me a message and I'll send you some links to important issues that need people in America or in civilized countries to be spokespeople for and activists about, because there's a lot of injustices going on, and we have to realize how freaking privileged we are and how much opportunity we have to be outspoken about important things. So, a few speaking tips that I recommend. Please get your notebook if you want to jot these down. Number 1 is just be yourself. You know, like so many people have this huge trepidation of public speaking because I think everyone's going to judge you, everyone's going to do this. But if you just go up there and you're just yourself, you're just real, then people are going to feel that, and they're going to feel that you may be a little nervous, you may be this, you know, have something weird about you, but you're just doing your best, and you're giving it your best shot, and that's the best you can do. So that's one big tip for public speaking or making videos. You know, the second one is just practice. You know, like I've been making YouTube videos since 2010, and that's given me a lot of practice in front of the camera to just get comfortable. And so that's really the key to everything, obviously. But, you know, doing test videos and finding any opportunity to speak in front of people is crucial to practicing your public speaking skills. And what you want to do is like bridge the little network from your brain to your throat, so that the ideas running through your brain can easily flow through your throat and out through your mouth. And, you know, for me, like back when I read Ishmael, this is kind of a short, funny story. Back when I first read Ishmael, I was smoking weed like 7 blunts a day type of style, like ridiculous amounts of weed. And my brain was so foggy, and I could not articulate my thoughts for the life of me. But when I read this book, I was like, dude, this is the best book ever. I have to tell all my friends to read this. I tried to like articulate what it was about, and I just could not communicate it. And I was like, fuck, like I need to tell people what this is about. So I was like, you know, this was the mission that was important enough for me to stop smoking weed. And so I did, and eventually my mind cleared up profoundly. And, you know, I'm not against weed. I know some people that use it every day and they can function fine. I'm not one of those people. But anyways, people sometimes think I'm high all the time just because I'm a, jolly person. But anyways, I started clearing up my brain and clearing up the pathway from my brain to my throat so that I could articulate every little thought that was going through my head. I wanted to be able to tell it to somebody else. So that's really important. But along with that is also like connecting your heart to your throat. So you're also like incorporating your heart energy, and really all of your energy centers or chakras are important to be in balance. So, that's why it's important if you're going to be public speaking to be grounded and be centered in yourself and have some kind of daily holistic practice that helps you to be healthy and centered. Um, so, anyways, number 3 tip for speaking is like make videos, watch them back, see what you're doing, see how you're presenting yourself, and see if there's anything you want to maybe change about it. Number 4 is like standing in a confident posture, especially when you're standing in front of a group. If you come in there and you're like super scrunched up and you're like maybe just reading off a paper the whole time, people aren't going to like connect with you because your energy field is like closed off. But if you come in there, your shoulders are back, maybe you did like a pep talk for yourself beforehand, your energy field is way more open and you're going to be able to connect with people a lot more. And I'm not one for really, I don't like really reading off scripts if I'm going to be talking to people. If anything, I'll do an outline, which is what I did for this little webinar. But if you really want to be connected to people, you have to be actually talking to them. So that's number 4. Stand in a confident posture. Remember that your energy is what you're really communicating. Like it's a nonverbal situation. A lot of communication is nonverbal. So another thing, this relates to all versions of putting your story out there. So many people think that, everything's been said before, other people are already talking about this. I don't need to add my 2 cents, etc. But I really think that's bullshit. I think we all have our unique perspective on things, and we all have like our voice literally will reach certain people and it won't reach other certain people, and other people's voices will reach certain people and it won't reach other people. Like people will connect with you for a certain reason. And so I think it's important that we all own that like we matter and our story matters, and we have to just put it out there and hopefully it will reach at least one person. That's really like the mantra that I share with myself whenever I'm going to put anything out there. Like, and this was inspired by Max Ribner, who's of Medicine for the People. He said that, he plays these shows, concerts before like thousands of people all the time. But his thing is like, if we move one person in that audience, then we've done our job. And I really resonate with that. So like, I think that's really the goal, is to just hopefully reach at least one person with your message, and you've done your job. Everything on top of that is like a bonus prize. So those are 5 basic tips for public speaking that I recommend. Let's keep this cruising. Yeah, I am going to answer questions in about 15 minutes. If you have questions, please save them for that. So on Facebook, I recommend, starting to follow people, pages, and groups that inspire you and that resonate with whatever your message is. Like, I don't think there's any shame in unfollowing someone that is posting stuff that doesn't really inspire you. Like, it doesn't mean you have to unfriend them. And not necessarily it doesn't inspire you, but doesn't like serve what you're wanting to learn about. Like, I think it's important to not ignore like the problems of the world and stuff, but if someone's just continuously posting the same stuff about whatever, it's okay to unfollow them. Like I generally say as a rule of thumb to focus like 10% of your energy on what's wrong with the world and focus 90% of your energy on like actually contributing towards creating the world you want to see. So I don't think you should ever ignore what's happening, but it's totally draining to be focused on the horrors of the world constantly. I think that we should continuously go back into the pain of what's happening to like remember how fucked up certain things are and use that as fuel to keep going. But if you want to be in the creative energy and contributing towards it, then you really got to be actively creating the world that you want to live in. Let's take a breath. So like one quick metaphor for that I share a lot is what's called the tale of the two trees. So there's these two trees here. The one tree is, all right, I got my mirror image here. So what we'll do, this tree over here is dying. It's like decrepit and dying. So this is the dying tree. This is the thriving tree. So the dying tree, the branches are represented by all the broken systems of society. So we got like a broken political system, a broken education system, a broken healthcare system, a broken environmental system. And these all are falling apart. And this tree is dying over here. The roots of this tree are represented by like the decrepit beliefs of the society, like that A, man is separate from nature, B, all these different screwed up values and belief systems that have grown this, different inequalities, infinite economic growth is literally like impossible on a finite planet. So that's a pretty screwed up belief. So like the roots of this dying tree are represented by these screwed up beliefs. And then over here, and this has like toxic soil grown by Monsanto and screwed up soil. So anyways, this tree over here is the thriving tree. And this tree has different healthy roots. And this represents like the new paradigm that we're slowly growing into, and that many of us that are watching this, I'm sure, are actively contributing to. So this tree has a root system with like a new belief system that has ideas of like co-creation and equality for all, and interconnection with nature, love and forgiveness for all people, like things like that. These are like the new root systems of this new society that we're creating. And then the branches are represented by like all of the new systems that are coming about, of like alternative education systems like Waldorf schools, permaculture gardens, things like that. All forms of like indigenous wisdom revival and sacred ceremonies, things like that. Different forms of transformational festivals. All these other things are like these new outgrowths of this thriving tree, as I call it. And so, I think it's key, going back to like what you focus on, to put most of your energy into contributing towards this new thriving tree, rather than like, so the metaphor that I use is like, if you realize that McDonald's is giving you cancer and you're so pissed off, I hate McDonald's, how could they fool me into eating their French fries? Are you going to literally spend all your time outside McDonald's, protesting, yelling, I hate McDonald's, they poisoned me, X, Y, and Z? Like that will eventually drain your energy, probably after one day. Or you could go over and start creating a store next to McDonald's that has delicious organic food, smoothies, all kinds of delicious things, to show people the alternative, to show people, look, we don't have to eat McDonald's every day. We can grow our own food and produce amazing things over here. So that's really the metaphor that I like to do. I don't want to ever ignore the bad stuff, and I think we should keep aware of it, but we really got to put our fuel into the new paradigm which we're creating. And I also will make an important note that it's not just a new paradigm, it's also like an ancient paradigm. And most of these things that people call like new age or whatever, they're actually like ancient teachings and belief systems from Taoist cultures and indigenous cultures and Hindu cultures and, you know, ancient Mayans, different things like that. So to remember that we're kind of like coming full spiral where we've gone on this big journey of like separation and civilization, and then we're spiraling back and being like, oh, maybe we should like return into harmony with nature, but also have some technology and also be, you know, utilizing our logic and science and stuff, but like coming back into balance. So let's take a sip of water here. So we're gonna keep on cruising here. So if you are working on sharing your message with the world, you want to find like outlets to share it to. So, you know, one way to do that, as I mentioned, all right, good night, Mindy, you're awesome. Um, so you want to find outlets to share your information with. So, you know, one way to do that, as I mentioned before, is like start friend requesting and connecting with all different people all across the world on Facebook. Like, it's literally been so phenomenal. I've, you know, had coaching clients in Germany and like, you know, people buying my book in Australia and like people wanting to connect with my music in like South America and stuff, like just because I put myself out there on Facebook, and you can do the exact same thing, and it's so magical. So so finding outlets to share with is like, you know, connecting with individual people out there. You can also start posting things in Facebook groups. There's literally a zillion and a half Facebook groups out there that are specific to so many different, you know, issues and causes and thought systems. I'm a part of a lot of them, and I've connected with some phenomenal people in them. You know, there's this one called Medicine Tribe Campfire, and that is specifically like people that are into what's called like musical medicine, like, you know, Trevor Hall, Medicine for the People, things like that. And it's kind of like a fan group in a way, but we share a lot of like things close to our heart. And I've just connected with so many amazing people through that. And there's plenty of examples like that. So I recommend starting to join and participate in different groups if you want to connect with more people with your message. You know, there's different local publications. You know, I've gotten on the news a couple times this year and in different newspapers because I organize different local events. It's really not as hard as it seems. Like, you just contact the newspaper and they're like, okay, we'll cover your story. So, you know, if you really put your stuff out there, it's amazing what can happen. And like with all these things, we've really got to cut out the fear of rejection. Like our inner child, my inner child is very sensitive, but you can also learn to like talk to your inner child and be like, oh, you got shut down by that news company? That's okay. Like, you could keep on trying again. You don't have to live your whole life in a hermit shell because you got rejected or whatever. So I think that's really important, is to like learn to accept rejection and almost like expect it, you know, like people have said, you know, different inventors throughout history, like Thomas Edison or other people, they got like shut down like hundreds and hundreds of times before they actually succeeded. Or like Babe Ruth, you know, would only hit a home run like one out of every 15 times, but he still had the freaking world record or whatever. So it's like so many of us give up because we don't succeed on the first try, but that's the journey, is being so dedicated to it that you just keep doing it regardless of whether you get positive feedback, because you know in your heart that this is what you're meant to do. And the secret is eventually you will get positive feedback, but a lot of times you have to like go through those phases of not really getting much. So, you know, there's local publications, there's people on Facebook, there's groups on Facebook. There's different sites where you can publish blogs and stuff, like Medium is one. There's other ones out there. You could also start your own blog. You know, I did that using Squarespace. with teampachamama.net. We create different content in there. A lot of it is like the different chapters of my books, but we're starting to create other content, and then you can start a YouTube channel. And I'm not going to cover all the ins and outs of it in this thing, but there's so many keys to like tips for starting a YouTube channel. You could also start a podcast. I know several friends have started podcasts recently. Those are getting really popular. And then you can use your Facebook platform and your YouTube platform to spread the word about the podcast. And, these things could potentially grow into like an actual business for you where you're creating income from these things. And I do think it's helpful to have like a blog as an archive, because on Facebook, a lot of things just like dissolve into nothingness, and related to that, it's helpful to have like notes on your computer. Again, I think it's much easier on a computer than on a phone. I have all these different tabs on the bottom of my computer of like different, quotes and thoughts and ideas and stuff, and to like have like a database of thoughts. If I see something on Facebook that's inspiring me, I'll copy and paste it into the notes so that it's not just lost in the Facebook universe. So those are some helpful outlets to put yourself out there, but the real key is just to start doing it and do it consistently. Do it at least once a week. So that's a few tips on that. Now I'm just going to share a few things from my book here, which is The New Earth is Here, which probably many of you have seen, but I have a chapter in here specifically called Facebook Tips. So I will share a little bit from that, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. So anyways, the chapter of the book starts out saying, okay, I'll tell a joke after this part. So anyways, so people say like, oh, the news, CNN has all this crap on the news 24/7 and they suck and whatever. But it's like, okay, well, what if you were given an hour to just be on CNN and talk about whatever you want? What would you talk about? What issues are most important to you that you want to tell the world? So, would you just play like a favorite documentary, or would you interview someone interesting to you? Would you talk about healthy food? Would you talk about whatever conspiracy theory you think is most important? Like, what would you talk about? So I actually believe that you actually do have your own channel of CNN, and that's your Facebook and your YouTube channel, that you can reach potentially millions of people through your little screen. Like, there's just regular average people, some of which I know, like, that have now a huge platform. Like, just a few examples. I knew Charles Eisenstein when I went to his workshops when there was literally 3 or 4 people there, and nobody knew who he was. And I was like, dude, your message is amazing. Like, you need to get out there. And I did my best to spread it through the people I knew. But now he's like on Oprah and all this other stuff. And like so many other people I know that used to have no following at all, and now they reach like millions of people. So it can totally happen, and I think it really needs to happen, and I think it's meant to happen, that those of us who care about this planet, care about human beings, that we step up and put ourselves out there. So here are like some super specific tips for posting on Facebook. So here we go. So the best times of day to post. I recommend posting between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But more so, I recommend posting between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because most people are more able to engage with content at the end of the day. Hey, Jason, love you, homie. More people are able to engage with content at the end of the day. Most people are not like wanting to type some big thing at the beginning of the day. So if you really want to like get a discussion happening or something that people can engage with your content, you want to do it when most people are done working or whatever. So like 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. is the best time in my experience. I've found that Friday night and Saturday night are not good times to post because most people are out doing other stuff. So I find that like Sunday night and Thursday night are like my favorite times to post. That just seems to be the time when most people are wanting to like engage in a discussion or hear whatever story I want to share. So I think if you're trying to reach a lot of people, start by aiming for like 5 to 9 p.m. Really like 7 p.m. is honestly like the golden time usually, but that's just my experience. I'm not like haven't done scientific studies on it. I also rarely post more than once a day. You know, if you get a post that starts engaging with a lot of people and it like gets into the Facebook algorithm, then that's going to circulate for at least 48 hours. So it's kind of silly to post something else. So I'm really a fan of like posting like occasionally, but really specific posts that you really want to get out there rather than posting like a zillion things at once, because that's just not going to get into the Facebook algorithm very well. So the Facebook algorithm, for those of you who don't know, is like, you know, if people start to engage with your post shortly after you post it, then Facebook's like, oh, this must be a good post. We're going to shoot it out to the next layer of people. And then if those people think it's good and they engage with it, then it's like Facebook's like, okay, let's shoot it out to more people. But if you post something at like 3 a.m. and no one comments on it, then Facebook's like, nah, this post sucks. We're not going to shoot it out to anyone. That's just how this shit works. And also, like, Facebook doesn't want you to put links to like external things that aren't on Facebook. And they don't even really like Facebook links to Facebook itself. It's weird. So if you really want to share a message, I recommend don't really having links in it. And don't even, here's a super pro tip. If you're gonna post a link to something, wait till somebody else comments on it first before you post the link, because Facebook doesn't like when you're the first person to comment on it with a link. So I've studied this shit. Anyways, rotating the variety of your posts is helpful as well. So like, you know, not posting say you're really passionate about, you know, whales dying, which is a serious issue or whatever, but if you're just posting about whales dying every single day, people are going to get tired of that. So you got to like figure out other things to talk about that you care about besides like your main issue or whatever. And also like the type of post is different. So you can like sometimes post maybe like, so sometimes you could post like those little text quotes where it shows it really big, but it has to be like less than 140 characters or something. Sometimes if you have like a nice little quick message, you could post it in that way. And sometimes those are really good if you have like a question for people, like what's your favorite, I don't know, vegan ice cream or something. Let's see here. But what I really like to do is share stories, which is like what this is all about, because I think stories are like the most ancient form of human connection, you know? And so if you can like tell a compelling story, then that's like a very profound way to connect with someone. And it helps people that don't really know you get to know you more and get to know your mission and what excites you about the world, and also your challenges and stuff. Like I share a lot about all the crazy shit that I've been through because I've been through it, and it's helpful for me to share. And I think that I know that it benefits other people because a lot of people have told me that. So, you know, sharing stories, especially with like a picture, if you can find either a picture of you that relates to the story or a picture of something online. Like a lot of times I'll just Google search like, I don't know if I'm talking about wizard, ancient Greek wizards or mysticism or something. Like I'll just Google and find like a really interesting picture of like an ancient pagan wizard or something and post that as the picture, because the bottom line is people are drawn to compelling pictures. And so if you have an interesting picture, people are going to associate that picture with your story, and it creates a lot more engagement, and it allows people to remember your story a lot more. So, you know, I'm big on stories. I also like short videos on Facebook. You know, most people these days aren't going to watch a video more than like 4 or 5 minutes. So if you can have just like a short video where you share a short message, you know, also on Instagram, I share like usually 1-minute videos almost every day. If you can just have like a specific message that you share, and that relates to the next point, which is that like people can only digest so much at a time. So, which is like, I'm sharing a shitload of information here, but whatever. It'll be archived. You can watch it later. But like, if you're gonna, if you're gonna tell a story or like do a post on Facebook, you don't want to like tie together a zillion different things, because it's just hard for people to digest that. Like you usually want to have like one key point that you're focused on, and really like drive that home and create kind of a story around it, so that people have like a take home message, like, okay, I need to care about the Amazon rainforest or whatever. But if you're tying together like a whole bunch of complex stuff, people aren't going to remember like the main message. So that's my general types of posts that I recommend. But also like talking about hot topics and current events is really helpful, because people are interested in current events. So one issue related to that is, well, it relates to all of this, but I call it the first 5 words. So if you're gonna post a thing on Facebook, people are in freaking hyper scroll mode. Like I see people scrolling like 50 miles an hour, but you want to put like your key message in the first 5 words. Figure out a way to like capture people's attention so that they know if they want to read more. If your story's about like something really interesting, but your first 5 words are just like one day at the grocery store, I don't know. It's not always the case, but if you're going to be talking about like Oprah's speech at the awards, you might want to title it like Oprah's speech ... and then people can like click to read more. So you want to like compel people with the beginning of your post, just to like respect their time and energy, you know? Okay, so radical honesty is another big one. Like just sharing from your heart, from your authentic experience is really helpful, and people resonate with that. People are craving authenticity and vulnerability in this world where so much is like fake on TV and, you know, all this different stuff. Like when you share your authentic experience, people like can feel that. They can get chills or truth bumps or whatever and be like, holy shit, I experienced something like that too. You know, so like that's a really powerful way to share your story. And you know, just practicing writing is really crucial to this. If you do want to be able to write a good short story, you know, you obviously need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Usually some kind of conflict resolution. You know, these are just basic, you know, qualities to a story, but they're important. You know, you want to also like describe things very vividly to people so that it like paints a picture for them, so they can like imagine that they're actually there experiencing that. Like that's what a good writer does.